What's up, guys? This is Ryan Jones with I Love Basketball TV, and today I'm going to teach you guys how to get that ball to come off your hand straight every single time, just like some of the best shooters in the world. So obviously nobody is perfect. You're not going to be able to shoot the ball perfectly straight every single time, but today we're going to analyze what the best shooters in the world do. So there's going to be 4 things that all the best shooters do. Even though they all have a little bit different form, they're very consistent with these things. So we're going to talk about those 4 mistakes, show you how to fix those, and also provide you with a drill for each one of those so you can become a much more consistent shooter. So make sure you guys stick to the end of this video because I'm going to give you a bonus tip which might be the most important factor for being a great shooter. And as always, make sure you hit that like and subscribe so you don't miss any of our ILB content. All right, so for this first key, we're going to build from the ground up, which is going to be our base. So one of the most overlooked things to being a great shooter and a great shot maker is being perfectly on balance as much as possible throughout each shot. So this is even more and more important if you're an off the dribble shooter where you're doing a lot of movements or you're running off of screens. You got to be able to get that momentum back under control and be perfectly on balance so you're not compensating moving the ball left or right. So whether you're a 10 toes to the basket shooter or you're more of a tilt shooter like this, you want to focus on having your center of gravity in between your arches here. So a good way to think about it and something to focus on, if I'm going up for a shot and I'm leaning a little bit to my right side, the ball's naturally gonna go right, or I'm gonna end up compensating to try to push it back left. And if you're having any sort of compensation in your shot, it's gonna be really, really hard to be consistent and keep that ball straight every single time. So it's really important when you're shooting to be consistent about coming up and down in the same spot, or maybe slightly forward, but we don't wanna be jumping right or jumping left because it's going to be really hard to be consistent with that. So this first drill that we're going to do to work on that balance is I'm going to start here with a nice shoulder width apart or maybe slightly wider base, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump backwards for this one, but you can do this in any which direction. But each time we do it, we're making sure that we have that balance, center of gravity, and then we're up and down the same spot as much as possible. So I'll start here, I'll go backwards this time, I go back, good balance, up into my shot. So as you guys look at most of the best shooters throughout the NBA, when they release the ball, the last 2 fingers to be on the ball are going to be your middle finger and your pointer finger. So it'll be this way for a right-handed player. So as you release the ball, it could come off these 2 at the same time. It could be more your pointer finger or more your middle finger. But either way, it should be one of those 2 fingers, if not both, every single time coming off last, flicking straight toward the rim. So unfortunately, it is a long process to change which fingers the ball comes off your hand last. But in order to get started with this, I would have you guys do 3 finger shooting. So you're gonna take your middle finger and your pointer finger, and then your thumb, and you're gonna grab the ball like this, start real close to the basket with that elbow in, and you're gonna go ahead and flick it, and you should have that really good end over end rotation, flicking that ball straight at the rim. If you guys are liking this video so far, make sure you click that pinned comment down below with the link, and we're gonna go ahead and send you guys a free scoring workout. So when you guys start your 3 finger shooting, you gotta have the right hand placement or it's not gonna come off your hand the correct way. So if you see this air hole right here where you put the needle in, if I go ahead and place my hand here or even here, that ball is gonna come off of these fingers naturally. So to have the right hand placement, I either wanna put my pointer finger directly on the center of the ball, or I want to split those 2 with my middle and my pointer finger so that the ball will come off of these 2 and that ball is centered. So when you guys go through this process of changing which fingers the ball comes off last, you're going to need to start very close to the basket with form shooting, hundreds of shots a day, and make sure you find a rhythm with that before you put all 5 fingers back on the ball and before you start moving out. All right, so now for the third key to shooting the ball straight every single time. When you look at all the best shooters in the league, they all have different forms. They might have a little bit of elbow out, maybe in or maybe super in, but for every single one of them, when they get to their release, you're gonna see they have good elbow positioning and that wrist and that hand is underneath the ball. So in order to get to that same position every single time, it's gonna be a lot easier if you do have your elbow in. Okay, so if a lot of you guys struggle with the chicken wing elbow, here's how to fix it. So the biggest mistake that I see that causes that chicken wing elbow is trying to have your hand and your wrist centered at the rim the entire time throughout this shot. So you can see right now my elbow's already out, and as I go up into my shot, I'm gonna have a bad chicken wing here. So a good way to look at this, as instead of having my hand squared to the basket the entire time, I'm actually, without the ball, if I'm right here, you're gonna see this U shape, okay? So if I can get this U shape over to my shooting eye, it might seem like your hand is in a weird position, but as you go up for your shot, once I start to follow through, I'm naturally gonna rotate, and then when I get to that release point, my hand is gonna be straight toward the rim. So if you guys go search Steph Curry's shot on Google Images, you'll see that when he's raising the ball here, his shooting hand is pointed more in here. It's not pointed toward the basket. But then as you continue to go frame by frame, once he releases it, that hand is nice and straight with that elbow nice and tight, perfectly for that release on the rim. So whenever you guys are changing anything on your shot, I want you to start real close to the basket, hundreds of shots a day, because you gotta change that muscle memory. So to fix this chicken wing, I want you guys to start close to the rim. Go ahead and get that wrist loaded. You should start with this U shape already. I'm gonna go ahead and bring that hand up, and then I can place the ball there. I still have that U shape, and I have a good elbow angle here, and I can go up into my form shooting. All right, so now I'm gonna get into the fourth tip, but don't forget, stay for that bonus tip at the end, because that can make or break you as a shooter. So for this fourth tip, it's extremely common. It's having an excessive thumb flick, okay? Now there are a few great shooters that have an excessive thumb flick, but it's a very, very small percentage. So if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you're not already a great shooter, so you should probably do what 90 to 95% of the great shooters do, which is using their guide hand properly. So there's gonna be two ways that great shooters typically use their guide hand, and one way that usually horrible shooters use their guide hand. So the horrible way is having a really strong thumb flick here, where you're pushing the ball, you're opening that hand, and it's kind of like a two-hand fling. That's gonna be really inconsistent most of the time, because you're relying on two different factors and two different hands to keep that ball straight. Now, what's taught to most great shooters is using their guide hand in a way where it is strictly just a guide. So this hand's gonna stay open here, or not open, it's gonna stay closed. Okay, so as I go up here, this hand is really just balancing the ball for my shooting hand, while I have that nice U shape on the way up. Keeps it nice and balanced, and it's important not to pull this hand off too early where I'm extending too much of a one-handed shot, because I don't have much stability here. So you try to keep that hand on the ball all the way until you start to follow through and flick that wrist, and then you should finish with a nice cookie jar here, and with this hand right at the rim, nice and close. All right, now this last one is one that Steph Curry does, and it's kind of a mix between the two. So as he brings the ball up here, he's gonna end up keeping this guide hand closed, but his thumb is gonna remain on the ball, and it's gonna be kind of like a thumb tuck. So when he finishes, a lot of the time, he's like this, but he's not flicking it excessively and turning that hand open. It's just kind of keeping that thumb on the ball as a stabilizer. And then again, as he goes ahead and follow through here, then it's gonna come off. He's not pushing too hard, and then he finishes like this. So to go ahead and fix your thumb flick, I recommend that you guys get here, get your U shape, put your guide hand on the ball, but let's keep that thumb off the entire time, and just do a bunch of form shooting, keeping that thumb off and making sure your hand stays like this and doesn't open up. So I'm here, thumb off the ball, follow through, and finish like this. All right, so now the bonus tip as promised. So this will make or break you as a shooter, and it's the reason you'll see some players with terrible form make shots and some players with really, really good form miss shots. So when you go up into your shot, when you get into a game, you gotta throw all those mechanics that are in your head out the window, okay? So if you think about your best games as a shooter, when you catch that ball, there's zero thoughts going on in your head. You're just looking at the rim and you're thinking that thing's going in, and you have confidence that it's going in. So when you get that ball, you can't be over here thinking, well, Coach Ryan said I gotta be on balance, I gotta have my elbow in, my U shape. If you have all these thoughts going on in your head, you're gonna have no rhythm, no sense of feel, and you're gonna throw the ball all over the place even though you might have good form. So it's really important when you're in the games, trust your work, have confidence that that ball is gonna go in, and just clear your mind completely and let that ball go where it's gonna go.